Hey Doc, thanks for joining me this Saturday evening. And this impromptu kind of just chit chat. Do you want to introduce yourself for everybody out in the social media multiverse?
I'm Doc Rock. I am currently the community manager at Ecamm Network. We create streaming software called Ecamm Live. I am also a co-founder of a brand new startup called Let's Get Live, where we are the educational resources for everything live streaming. We like to help business people tell better stories through video and live video. And I just been on a mission to help businesses sort of recover by having a better clear opportunity to share their messages through video and some other social media platforms, but most of them are getting into this quick micro video content, and everybody thinks TikTok and like live streaming is just for kids, and it's
No.
not. That can be no further from the truth.
And this is why we are friends. I as a business attorney, and we've known each other for so long. I love tech. I love the art of storytelling, wordsmithing. But in general, I love the ability to kind of connect, especially with entrepreneurial, energetic, small business owners, especially here in Hawaii, but they have that combination of, yeah, I want to make some dough, I want to make some cash, but I want to outreach with the most effective kind of communication tools, but also I want to give or contribute back to the community. When we were back in the day, all the way in terms of your co-working space, um, it was fresh, it was innovative, it was down in Kaka'ako, and we were all talking face to face. We
Yeah, it was
obviously can't do
that
that
energy.
now, and thus my interest in Clubhouse, the new app. I I recently joined, but I know you told me before we started recording, you've actually been using it for a long time. Well, when it first
Yes,
kind of got started, but for
yes.
me, I still kind of have that lawyer mindset of what is this all about? Observe, and I have not said. Several of our friends have already, in terms of social media types down here in Hawaii, they keep trying to get me to prompt me to say something in one of the rooms, and I'm like, I'm driving because you're on speaker. I was like, I don't know, I kind of use it as kind of like talk radio. But can you tell
That's
me?
exactly what I tell people. I tell people it's talk radio.
Well, but can you
It's
tell me
it's it's
what
super
it's all
fun.
about in your mind because you've been there since the
Okay,
onset?
so if you happen to belong to a business that at some point in time had conferences, right? Um, for when I was a tech writer, I would go to Macworld, I would go to CES, I would go to Seabold, I would go to these various different conferences. Um, when I was in there's a company called Peak Potentials, which is probably a direct competitor for Sci. But when I was in, the sort of self-help, self-discovery space, we would go to the conferences, and the keynote sessions and the breakout sessions are fun, and you learn some stuff and you get to see new stuff when it comes out. But any conference goer for any kind of conference, whether it's legal conference, teachers conference, software, hardware, woodworkers, like whatever, I don't care what you're doing, the party at a conference is in the hallway. The
R-
hallway track is straight money. Like that's where you develop relationships. That's where you learn about, the deep ins and out of stuff. You're standing there at one of those little round tables, and they call them the Utahs. And
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
four
yeah.
people there. Everyone's just trying to get a quick bite in between the session. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm from Hawaii. I do. Oh my God, you're from Hawaii. Blah blah blah. Conversations. Business card. Next thing you know, you're talking to the CEO of United Airlines, and he just happens to be trying to start a podcast, and he needs your help.
Uh,
Like that's the kind of stuff that happens at
so
conferences,
I
where if you sent them an email, like, I'm not answering this guy. You know what I mean? So
but
that's what Clubhouse is. Think of it as the hallway track for any dope conference.
so I I would love to hear the insight from the founders why they chose Clubhouse, because your description mirrors my initial kind of impressions and stuff like that of I've been a presenter, an attendee, a moderator from business and legal kind of conferences here or nationally, but even my geeky side, going to Anime Expo or
Oh
other
yeah,
kind
I
of
forgot
like,
about Comic-Con. I slipped
yeah.
on one.
But no, but the thing is it's that energy and vibe of, oh, maybe there is a presenter or there's an interesting topic, and then when you break out, you grab a room, you talk in the hallway, or you go down to the hotel bar and like continue that energy and that talking,
Yeah.
and that's the vibe that I've so
Do
forgotten.
have you been to like any like say Penn alumni mixers, or whatever like that, and then you people that not in your class, you didn't grow up with them, you don't really know them, maybe they're not even in law school or something like that, but you find unique people that are grown people still into D&D. And
Yeah.
you're like, whoa, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I
Like
I need more
I,
D&D players. You want to join
see,
one of
that's what
my
I'm saying.
groups?
So start a D&D room and Clubhouse, right? And call it like, grown men D&D club or grown folks D&D club, because there's nothing wrong with it. Like I got a lot of homies that play like in Boston, that still play from all the way back when we were in school. Like it's just a thing. I keep telling myself I don't have time for it. Plus I get way too serious. I be wanting to
Hmm.
have fights. I know you do too. So, so, so,
It's my job. It's part of my job. It's part of my
you
job.
know what I mean? Right. So just think of that. And, not to jump ahead, but I just want to clear some things up. I've done several live streams talking about Clubhouse because Clubhouse for me has been uh, a godsend. I'm
Mm-mm.
secular, but I use the terminology because it's term of art. Okay. It is a godsend to me. And I'll tell you why. I as a content creator, I tell my students to ignore vanity metrics whatsoever. As long as you're touching that the right 100 folks, you're good. Like it's not about getting to 1 million subscribers or whatever. However, since I've been on Clubhouse, I've probably grown almost 4,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel.
I
Why? Because I go into YouTube oriented rooms and I answer questions when those questions comes up, and then people's like, man, this guy is giving good value. And then YouTube creators who I looked up to, the guys that are sitting at like 1 million, plus followers or that run like YouTube schools or whatever, and they're hearing me deliver this value. And my value comes from being on the platform for damn near 15 years and screwing it up for like 14 of them. So I'm able to give the what not to do advice, you
I
know?
I
Go
largely
ahead.
do definitely think, people have gotten into this heavily data driven, reductive kind of, if I do XYZ, I'm going to get this many followers, and then I can just sell my influence and things like that. I think the reason why that I've so far seen Clubhouse do so well is that bent on authenticity, and also you're right, you got to use your real name. It's meant to be just jump on and start chatting, and it's an emphasis on that, whereas with TikTok, Instagram, there is definitely room for editing, curating, and kind of over managing in terms of what the delivery of the content is. The whole point of this, my understanding, is a drop in audio is just to talk,
Well,
just to
and here's
talk.
the other cool thing. Now, again, we are finding out who the I don't like to call folks out, but I would just be factual. We're finding out who the charlatans are because in a Twitter profile or an Instagram bio, it's what you present.
Right.
Okay. I can write my bio as sexy as I want. I can post my overly curated pictures. I can bring out my 104 millimeter Fuji to take pictures and post it from the app that's supposed to be posted from my iPhone. Okay.
Right.
Presenting the dream vacation,
Do you
you
remember
know,
the old days of, oh god, now I sound like Foursquare, where people were lying where they checked into?
Yes. Yes. And that's what I mean. Like you would go outside of the Ritz Carlton and take a picture, like, oh, checking in, go to the front desk, checking in, and then you go across the street to the Holiday Inn. Yeah, I get it. It's a thing. So this over curated, over manicured lifestyle thing. But in Clubhouse, when someone says, okay, so you're, Ryan Hugh, and you're from H&B, and you are, an accomplished attorney. Let me put you on stage and green star you, and then you're not able to answer simple questions, or you get found out real quick. Now, I know you would be able to do fine, but I'm just using it as the
I
unconnected you,
the
and so this helps people find out who the charlatans are real quick.
the the paused or deer in the headlights moment for me though is some of these rooms have like 500 people. The max that I've probably ever spoken to, and that was mostly a moderation thing, and I think it was for entrepreneurial stuff for HTDC at one of the hotels. It was like maybe 50, 100 people, but it was like I wasn't really saying much. The largest groups I usually talk to were when I had students as a HPU adjunct professor, and they're all young impressionable minds, so I can talk IP and communications law, and they probably, why is he still talking, this is so boring.
It is so much easier to talk when you assume that you are the mentor in a situation like that. But here's one of the great things I tell all of my people. I think the largest crowd I've ever spoken to was like 15,000, and that was like emceeing a concert. But
Mm-hmm.
I, from the days that I was in radio, to just doing, talks at the greenhouse, or doing talks, as a live streamer on YouTube, or doing talks at conferences, I only ever am talking to one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll use collective, nouns, but I try to let my brain realize I'm talking to one person. So like when I first go to the stage and I stand there, I'll look at several people in the room. I'll pick like two or three people from this angle, two or three people from the center angle, naturally someone directly in the front couple of rows, and then two or three people from that angle. And then when I look in those directions or walk towards that stage, I kind of look at them and I build a rapport with that 5 or 6 people. And then what happens is the other 20,000 people become a blur. I am talking to 10 folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what's really cool is when you make that eye connection with them and you say something that actually mirrors with them and they give you that feedback. Oh, it's nothing better. Because trust you, if you nailed that one particular person, you probably nailed 30, 40% of the room. But that person feels like a king queen that day, or sometimes a little of both,
I I
in
I
2020.
I too like that dialogue interaction for very large groups because it makes it interactive, and I think Clubhouse definitely has that going for it. I think there is that kind of ability to say your piece, and based on their guidelines, their terms of service, the whole situation is you're not supposed to really just have it as one presenter, but like maybe a set and kind of go down and kind of have an interaction rather than speaking at. It's supposed to be kind of like shared ideas, communities, and speaking. On that note though, I do want to segue into some of the reasons why I asked you to join me this evening and just chit chat, because I always have my attorney hat on. And one of my biggest things that I do, as you already know, sometimes when everything's blowing up and everybody's, oh, you got to join this app and stuff like that since the early days. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes.
It's only on Apple right now. So of course Apple requires all app developers to upload their you have to have the link to your terms of service, to your privacy policy, and they've done a good job in terms of Alpha Exploration Company having community guidelines, much in the vein of like YouTube and Facebook, but
That is such a funny name.
Alpha Exploration. So just so you all know, I'm a business attorney. Well, let me start off. If you're watching this in the future on Tuesday or whenever I drop or upload this, this is just me and Doc dialoguing, and this is one of my friends who is a tech content media expert to give me that angle, talking about just issues we see. And it's not a denigration of Clubhouse, or it's a new tech, and like every new tech there's things for everybody learning. But I always caution early adopters, because that's who I tend to work with, entrepreneurs and stuff like that. it's great to have that energy, but also as a business attorney, I always weren't concerned of risk and liability and kind of issues. So segueing that back to Alpha Exploration Co. I did you know they're a Delaware company? I mean,
Oh, as they should be.
yeah, so generally what that means and signals to people like me and Doc is like, okay, even though they're operating in California because they filed a foreign business filing to operate in California, but they're a Delaware corporation means it was like you guys are going for an IPO. That's the only reason to kind of set up that way.
Oh, so that's a good tell if a company is trying to get bought is when they form in Delaware.
Yeah, because Delaware has a court of chancery that hears all the shareholder investor business corporation, high corporate law, shareholders suing founders, or inside. All that is through the Chancery Court, usually in Delaware, and Delaware has a lot of built up momentum, interest, and institutional knowledge in all these corporation type of situations. So that's usually
Yeah.
why you incorporate there. But as we know, most of the Silicon Valley tech and talent, even though we're living through COVID, and they're probably hidden up now in Kauai, Maui, Big Island, and doing all their engineering there. The headquarters and stuff like that is still the California style. So
Yeah,
I
a
get
lot of
it.
moving out to Austin too, which is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, there are new hubs going up, but when I go through this terms of service and we talk about openness and sharing, but we've already seen and already knowing kind of what the roadmap kind of looks like. And I pose this to you because you've seen it all is like, you know, their privacy and data collection. It's very blunt. Is we collect information. So if you go to privacy policy, we collect information that alone or in combination with other information our possession could be used to identify you, personal data. And they freely admit, and we've if if you're ever so inclined to take a nap or how to sleep, go ahead and read people's terms of service or privacy policy. But when I was going through things, it was like, yes, this just looks like everybody else's social media and things that we're kind of used to. So
Like
they are,
boilerplate.
yeah, they are
If you want
collecting.
to, if you want to become rich, can I tell you what you do? You create a terms of service to English translator.
Convert the legalese. Yeah, when is Google Translate gonna do? What language is this legalese? And then do the just fit. But if that's the issue for privacy and data, my question to you is, well, what is the real business model, right? You only right now you have to be an Apple user. They're getting everybody aboard in interest, but when you have to have institutional investors, shareholders, and things like that, and you're bought out, or whoever the stakeholder may be eventually, their expectation is to see a return on their investment. And the thing is that's still a business model. And usually in these situations, as we now know, they gather content, sell it, repackage it, or do whatever they need to do, at least, for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right? They have figured out a way to monetize this.
So I Clubhouse has in their town halls, they have talked a little bit about what they think their monetization strategy will be. And so far it's a little bit altruistic, but at the same token, is if they pull it off, it'll be fantastic. If they can't pull it off, they will have to dip into other arenas, which will become problematic. And so for right now, they want to have this open, dialogue between, friends, users, club. We could have again a Hawaii Dungeons and Dragons club, or open to the world Dungeons and Dragons club, or a Dungeons and Dragons club for, Americans that have a Japanophile slant to them that would love to have players from there. They get to practice their English. We get to practice our Japanese. Like we could do very
That would
specific
be really fun. Actually, that would be
they'll
really
be
fun.
fun, right? Very specific type of club. So what will then in turn happen is some company, let's call it Topher Schlund Dodecahedron Incorporated, they want to come in and they want to host a conference for D&D players throughout.
Mm-hmm.
They would pay for the land to host a conference,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just as if they were going to buy the Moscone Center in San Francisco for a day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's where they're hoping this will take them to. And right now, it does seem very likely you are having um, actors and actresses who were the original people that were invited. A lot of musicians were the original people who were invited to do open conversations with their fan base. That's how it originally
Mm-hmm.
started. And then it just so happens that their launch somewhat coinciding with the George Floyd situation. The first couple of months of Clubhouse just happened to be mostly Black activists, which was dope. Like, we had a place that was all ours with nobody else bothering us to have full out and out conversations about just round about everything. And it was good. And it grew rapidly from there. And then now as it's starting to open up, it was good because for the first time in social media history, uh, marginalized people got to run a social media platform first and do
Mm-hmm.
everything. So you had the Black division, by naturally that brings a certain element of the alphabets, got to be there because so many of us
Mm-hmm.
fit in that situation. Then it became the women, and then it became the entrepreneurs otherwise marginalized, and then it became Silicon Valley started to leak in, and then it started to open up for the general public now. So the space, the conversations, the informations have been fantastic, very high level, very good stuff. Now that also requires rooms like the Moan Room. Just leave it at that. Don't look it up. Trust me. Um,
I won't. I won't.
there has definitely been some rooms of ill repute, but for the most part, there's really I mean, I get to go in a room and ask a question directly to Damon John, and I'm not on Shark Tank. When was that going to happen?
I know the level of flatness and directness to I would say definitely powerful, influential people has been very real and perceptible. Um, on the note of the privacy and data collection, I don't know where the United States is trending, but I do already know, reading the news, that I believe obviously the Chinese government does not. So exactly for the things that you talked about of
Oh, they don't
gathering of
want it.
people of social change, I believe that uh, Chinese citizens, mainland China, can no longer access Clubhouse. I believe I've seen that Germany. Well, so big thing in tech and privacy before pandemic and everything was the European Union's GDPR for privacy, and I believe in Germany, Clubhouse is having issues. I also want to say in Thailand for their type of privacy laws and stuff. So as these things go, I feel that Clubhouse is going to have to react as much as everybody else does, even though they're an American company. They do privacy and data kind of collection much like everybody else does. And then skirting that other line in terms of, we have something here, it's valuable, and clearly we've enacted social change, dialogue, and things of value. But then how do we transform that into something that's monetization worthy
Oh,
for
dude,
investors?
there's gonna be pay for um why did my brain just go blank? When we sit around in a room and the company tell us what they're thinking they're going to do, and we all give our ideas, and then they focus group. Hello, sorry, I got stuck. Um, there's going to
It's
be
Saturday. It's
pay
Saturday.
for focus groups. There's going to be, I can do very specific trainings and other things. There's going to be business done in Clubhouse. Let's just put it that way.
And
So they don't know what it is yet, but trust me, once the investor sees it and the investor tells them they're going to buy it, they're going to force people to go that way. I'm going to tell you why Clubhouse is an interesting space.
I think, yeah, I definitely think so, but I want to
After
hear your insight.
about 5 rooms, Mark Cuban goes, I see it. I see the holes in it. Let me recreate it my way. Immediately, Jack Dorsey goes, I see it. Periscope sucks. Let me create it. So, and then now Facebook, Zuckerberg is like, we're in trouble. Let me create it. So when you immediately see the five to date clones that are all trying to rush to market right now to step in where Clubhouse is there and come with okay, if Cuban makes his, he don't need nobody to buy him out. He is the buyout. So he had two options: attempt to approach them, and maybe it happened, and they were like, no, no way. He goes, oh, you done messed up. Now I'm Mark Cuban. I invented HDTV primarily. Nobody wanted to hear it. Everybody thought it was crazy. Mark Cuban, broadcast.com, primarily invented how we watch 4K television at the time. I mean, he didn't invent the process, TV people did, but nobody wanted to hear it. And Mark proved that there was value in it. And that's why he's a shark. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he approached them and they said no, but for whatever reason, Mark has his coming out, and immediately Twitter start hastening the shutdown of Periscope to get to this. So now, what do they call them? Twitter fleets. I don't know what the heck that name is,
Oh
but
yeah, what? I think it's supposed to be like they mean like fleeting image,
I
but
got
I
it.
was like, but they're not. I was like, you're not images. That's Instagram's thing.
Twitter stupid. Let's just get that covered. Um, so yeah, there. I mean, everybody. I mean, Twitter's doing it, Facebook is doing it, Cuban is doing it. There's about 3 other apps that are trying to get in the way. So the Clubhouse clones are coming out. So the space is fine, right? And then but I'm agree with you. The one thing I've been trying to tell more and more people, and I guess is because I'm an ex-Apple employee,
Uh huh.
when the app is free, you are the product. And that does
So
not resonate with folks enough. It just doesn't. And I'm like, fam, I don't care what you think. When the app is free, you are the product.
it's funny you bring that up because as I leaf through this, there's a section on fees, and I'm like, is this just a holdover from somebody else's Silicon Valley attorney or a New York attorney's template? Because it says fees. To the extent the service, that is the app, or access and programming of the app, or any portion thereof is made available for any fee, you will be required to select a payment plan and provide Alpha Exploration Co. information regarding your credit card or other payment instrument. And I'm like, that's a very kind of, to me, when I see things like that, it's like an old kind of way of actual payment for service providers or kind of old website type of language. And I'm like, I get the impression from you, and my impression is, I don't know. I mean, they might charge for things, the premium that you talk about in an added service later, much down the road, or, these focus group things, but I don't really see why they would charge, especially anytime in the near future, for their user fees and use
That's
basically.
vanity. They're
Yeah.
going to charge for vanity. I don't know why they haven't done it so far. Now that they've hit 22 million users, the vanity rollout should actually come out within the next 2 weeks.
And the only other thing that, so along the line further on that is commercial use is, you're supposed to be using the app for, at least by their contract terms with you, their terms of service, is for personal use, not commercial use. We already know people. We already know people. I've already seen some of the more popular law blogs talking about people lending clients and stuff like that. It's just chit chatting. There's no way exactly what we were talking about, the convention in the hallways. Here, let me give you my business card. I was like, that's just
Yeah.
already happening.
So they're not going to be able to stick that. But see, what I mean, just in case that was missed, I should clarify what I mean by vanity. Right now, my profile isn't any more searchable than the next person. But
Mm,
as a creator on the come up, if I wanted my profile to be more searchable, I can pay for some sort of vanity that allows me to be seen top of mind, tip of tongue, right?
right, right.
Also, certain avatars or certain badges or verification or some other things like my room would be seen in my region as one of the top 5 rooms if I am paying, $1,000 for the month. things like
Right.
that. Or my club, I can advertise my club in the hallway. When you jump on the app and you scroll, try to find a room to jump in, that's the hallway, right? So, sooner or later, I'll be able to buy an advertisement that allows my hallway, sponsored hallway, jump into this room. It's more or less a wayfinding type system.
I
So that's why that language exists. I mean, if they're smart, they would have already turned on vanity because people are vain.
right, for video gamers. If you can't tell everybody, I have gaming headsets because it's like I need to be able to hear every sound when I game. But anyway, um, I mean, for me, from the corporate kind of contract or basically kind of terms of service, I mean, it's all there. It's all there. All the right. There's like I said, nothing stands out, but it's
The
there.
writing's on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, if they were going to really truly do something really on the business model operate as you build this thing out, I'm not saying what they have isn't valuable or new or interesting. That's certain. But in terms of the road mapping and kind of what they've reserved as rights for them or how they've protected themselves, there's it's all there. I mean, so for copyright claims, user content, exactly what you said, Vanity, is like you represent and warrant that you own all right, title, and interest to your user content. That right. So you upload your photos and stuff like that, and they have the ability for you to submit copyright infringement for them. They'll resolve it, right? And then my favorite is indemnification, where you always are releasing and agreeing to defend them against any third party suits that you're involved in. You step in, and their disclaimer of warranties. But my favorite whenever I read these, as you go down, is when you hit to the what I call the we're gonna put this in bold and underline and like all the wording isn't all the words are in all caps and everything, and it's always in disclaimers, limitation of liability. And the latest thing, out of America, business American law and things like that, is the agreement to arbitration. So basically, oh, and also usually attached with that is no class actions. So
Yeah, I was thinking recently we were talking about this. I wonder what's going to happen when the first like stalker case or something like that pops on, because it's been too long. It has to be one coming soon. I hate to say that, but it is what it is. And I guess I've been listening to a lot of true crime, so
no, those are good on Netflix though. They're very like you
oh,
watch what you start with one episode, and then by the time oh look, it's 2 a.m. in the morning and I've watched the entire.
okay. We're gonna need a what's the word I'm looking for? We're gonna need a season 2 of the Doc and Ryan Saturday night discussion,
Yeah.
because I have thoughts about Brittany.
Okay. All right. Well, we will, and
We'll
maybe
table that.
we can bring somebody else in, but uh,
Sidebar,
yeah,
Your
yeah.
Honor, I like to talk about Brittany. Okay, inside bar.
um,
Did I say that right? Did I
no, no,
cover the legalese?
yeah. It was like
Okay.
sidebar is when you talk on the side, and it's like um, not to get too far off track. I was starting to get to it, but and this is where I wanted to segue the whole genesis of this. You and me talking is okay, that's fine and dandy, and we've kind of gone over the societal situation, pandemic. Why is there a need for this? Who is Alpha? What are they doing, and where are they? But one of the things in their terms of service is user disputes. You agree that you are solely responsible for your interactions with any other user in connection with the service and Alpha Exploration Co. We will have no liability or responsibility with respect thereto. Alpha Exploration Co. reserves the right, but has no obligation to become involved in any way with disputes between you and any other user of the service. Basically, and there's consistent language that is, hey guys, feel free to use our app, but if there's a fight or a legal obligation or dispute, you guys resolve it amongst yourselves. We're not going to take part in it. We're just the platform. So the reason
That
why
happened in the room that I was in. that happened,
And so
and it
that's
was
why I want to address
crazy.
this is that many of our friends and people that we know here in social media tech first here in Hawaii are early adopters, and I think most of them are very savvy because they've gone through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Linktree. They've been there from the, like Ryan Ozawa and Bert Lum have been there since the inception of everything, tech wise, whether it be for business to business, consumer. But I wanted to recap as an attorney because I always see people as like, do you really want to post that? Do you really want to say that? Do you know?
And
I was like,
then Hawaii's a little different too because yeah, this is so strange. I just realized this. Hawaii's a little different because okay, so we are openly, lovingly racist. It's never coming from an intention of hate. It's just chiding people, right? But it
right.
normally wouldn't be accepted anywhere else because you're normally saying it out of some random hate. And that's so hard for people that are not from here to understand because we are so multicultural. We actually do call people by their race, but not from an intention of impression in most cases. Trust me, there are some weirdos here, but normally just from an identification standpoint, I say we're probably more ethnic than racist, but the term of art is term of art, right? So if you come out of us and you start conversating in a room where there is now a mixed company, and I don't mean mixed ethnicities, I mean people from Hawaii versus people not from Hawaii. When someone makes a reference, they'll be like, I can't believe he just said that. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of normal for us. Like when I worked at the radio station, when we got bought by the mainland company, oh, it was so wild because we couldn't say like 80% of the morning jokes all had to go away because they were so afraid that they were going to get in trouble. And we were like, nah, that's par for the course here in Hawaii because it's not in most cases never coming from a position to try to harm someone.
There's
But
that directionality and intent that is sometimes missing, but people don't. All they know is you're in this room and you're just talking and you're saying things that may be offensive to somebody else, but not to you because of your background. And
correct.
and,
Correct.
and because of those expectations, for me as an attorney, I have I think I have concerns the way people interact of things like defamation, invasion of privacy, um, other issues that can come about is like quote unquote theft of ideas in terms of business realm, because going back to how we started talking about this, I was like, when you go to a convention, do you share all your business plans with the person you give the business card and say let's follow up in chit chat? You don't like broadcast it to everybody in the room or who might be nearby. It's like, oh, I have this really great idea, are you interested, right? But I don't know if it's because you're on your phone and maybe you're in the comfort of your own home, or if you're like me, you're listening to other people while driving, on audio, and people you again, you don't know what other people are doing. It's audio based only, but
Man, if
the
you were a smart business person, you would like I had all this money and I just ran out of ideas. You would just go to clubhouse rooms and implement 80% of the good ideas. Or, a certain I shouldn't say 80, but a certain percent of the good ideas that are just freely given out with no protection.
yeah, and so
Because
that's
you're
the
right. You're
and that's
right.
what I'm so shocked about is well, I mean, maybe I'm not shocked, more is like, wow, you just jumped into a room of like 100 people and you don't know and vetted this, and like you're giving your whole ideas. I think one of the chats I joined, somebody mentioned this lady kind of talked about her business idea, and before the room closed, the domain name was already registered by somebody already listening and stuff like that. And it's like, what I try to explain people from the intellectual property side, at least on American basic intellectual property, is, and you've heard me say this before, we don't protect ideas. You just talking about it doesn't. There needs to be work and effort. Like for trademark, right? It's a branded product or service, and this is your logo, this is your catchphrase, marketing plans and stuff. For copyright, right? You have to reduce a unique expression to a tangible medium. So, right, being a playwright, a recording artist, because you know this from your radio days, is like I always, the way I tend to describe a lot of American IP law style is that, yeah, just because you thought about it in your head, you have to then take that and translate that into something that of value or protection,
Correct.
whether it be
Well,
patent.
unless you know how to file a lawsuit in what is it, West Texas or East Texas? Sorry, it's East Texas.
Each of the different IPs have different requirements to establish them, but my when I'm speaking to lay people in this kind of context, where I try and get them across, if this is your money making idea, this is your money making idea, you really need to be aware of who you're talking to and what you're sharing. And that's the
Correct.
main thing with Clubhouse is there's that.
Well, you know what's funny? I've definitely been on a stream and the person that was doing the stream was talking about, man, imagine like all of us guys who have classes, coaches, consulting services, whatever. It was right around Black Friday, and everyone was talking about what they were asking me. Of course, I always get these interviews every November. Doc, what are the top 5 things I should be looking out for in Black Friday sales? So it was one of those. And so I was a guest on the stream, and then she was saying, man, it'd be really cool if like all the guys like us that have like courses or trainings or conferences, virtual programs, like we should have a place where we can put all of our stuff on sale for Black Friday. And then so I'm sitting on the stream listening to her talk about this. And I bought the domain Streamer Monday so that
I right.
come
And the
next November, all of the streamers that want to have membership programs or something or merch, they want to have sales. Trust you me, we're going to have a 24-hour QVC type thing
yeah,
coming like that Monday after Thanksgiving next year. Because I already bought the domain. I
yeah.
got 8 months to build the site.
And I think some of the distance, going back to our analogy about the conference hall rooms and stuff like that, even if you told somebody your secret idea, there was always a delay or lag time. They would then need to pick up the phone, or they would need to. This situation is, I can have my phone right here, and I was like, okay, just grab that domain name, or like, right. The other issue that I find is, even though, and actually they just changed, and I was just talking to you about that, and um, I don't think people realize it because the change came relatively recently. But one important change we've made is the introduction of temporary and encrypted audio recording solely for the trust and safety purposes. And, in their community guidelines, there's ways for people, on more of the tort type of issues, which is defamation, invasion of privacy, all those kind of things. It's dependent on your moderator to read the room, so to speak. But the original intent of Clubhouse was not to record things. Is that they don't, but now I think they realize, even though they have all this language protecting them from liability suits and kind of things like that, it'd be better to put in place a system. But that turns back to, well, how much of this temporary, how much is temporary, and what are you doing with these encrypted audio conversations? And for me, for where we are in the conversation, you're not supposed to by the terms of service, but um, a lot of people are probably unilaterally recording conversations on another
All day.
device. Yeah.
There's live podcasts going on there. There's people that are showing Clubhouse rooms simultaneously on their live streams on YouTube.
And for me, the concern on that goes to copyright issues, disclosure of confidential information. Is like, again, this goes back to that principle, is I don't know if it's because it's on your phone and people are so cash, or because we're trapped by COVID in our homes. Is like,
All you have to do is skip one time. Okay. To the rooms that do it, everyone goes, hey, just to let you know, we are recording this because I want to use some snippets from my social media. Do you mind being recorded? And the person says no. I mean, yeah, no. Okay. Anyway, you know what I mean? You get a
yeah.
positive response.
Well, Hawaii people, I use yeah, no all the time, or no, it is like,
Yeah. So it's processed, and then you go into, you're on like the 40th person. The room has been going for hours. You're tired, and you say, "Oh, Ryan, come on up," and then you start talking. the one time I forgot to say that, even though it's written in the title, even though we've been told to put the red dot emoji to specify recording, it's not in the document. It's just what's the word I'm looking for? Like social practice, for lack of a better
Yeah, a lot
word.
of the for me as an
Unwritten
attorney,
rule.
the rules and guidelines for the rooms or the etiquette and stuff like that, I usually take them as is it's a way of serving notice to somebody, an entrant, before. It's the same thing as like you using the community pool, or like you're on notice that these are the rules, and this is how we do things here, to kind of just put them on notice. But it's exactly as you said, some people don't read, or they just logged in and they don't know, and one person has consented to something and one person hasn't. And for me, as like, oh, this is just a mess. This is just a mess for things like that. That's why I think for me, I prefer smaller rooms where I at least know or have some semblance of exactly what you were talking about, also on the cultural and societal front, that the bridge of to bridge the gap in expectations or possible miscommunications is much smaller. When you start adding a lot more people, it's, I guess the principle I would use is, would you be okay saying that on radio, on air? Would you be okay saying that in a room of 500 people you don't know? I was like, and then lo and
That's a
behold,
good way to put it.
so lo and behold, some people, I was like, oh, your caution, your sense of caution, your spidey sense danger meter is very not like very like it's very loose. But I mean, I always warn people, is like, you don't know who's in the room. And you know I would always urge people caution in terms of that. I'm not saying, in fact, like I said, I wouldn't be here doing this and trying to help and share to our community of, you know I think the app is good. I just also just warn people sometimes against their very, very naturalistic instinct of, you might be oversharing, and you know, you may be breaking confidentiality where you have one, or you may be insulting somebody by being so casual, or, if you're a business starter trying to get input, you may have just given away the whole thing. So those are those are my kind of, it's just a reminder of like, hey, is it, I get it, we're all in a COVID situation, this is a great app, but the law, I guess for me, the laws and the rules, at least for America and in Hawaii, and that's my other thing, is jurisdictional issues. One person here is in this state, you could be speaking to somebody in Japan. There's different laws, and just because there's Clubhouse's contract, I was like,
So that's what's going to be interesting then, because I mean, if you think about it, like 2 weeks ago, the app opened up to Japan, and I was listening to some rooms where like celebrity guys were coming in and just like trying to get everybody on like up to speed, tell them what's going on. It's almost as if Clubhouse went and got Japanese influencers, to come on and just like sing the praises of the app. You know what I
well, I
mean?
mean, I think that's a way to definitely enter a new market of a different country, and kind of like quickly get kind of like interest and appeal going.
But
But
but they're the way you just do things over there is so different. Even before, there's some things that are probably not quote unquote illegal or on the books, because culturally you just would never overstep that boundary. Whereas for us, we have to delineate every single thing because people will always try to buck.
well, I also just, well, a without getting too much into the Western versus Eastern kind of, I was like, we focus on individual rights, self-expression, and kind of things like that. But because of that, this is where we get into exactly kind of why I wanted to talk about, um, mismatched expectations, and thus sometimes hurt feelings, emotions are actionable lawsuits or claims or fights against each other. Or, as I said, I'm like, you know did you reveal something? Did you record something you should have? Did you say something you shouldn't have? Right. And so I, I, I would counsel, or I mean, I would warn or kind of just label. And I think a lot of people here who have set up Hawaii rooms and stuff like that do probably excellent job of moderating. And knowing you in terms of your own personal kind of ethics and code is like, let's get everybody on the same page and hold up. Do you want is like, kind of, as I said, fair warning and notice, and kind of like, and slowing the conversation. It's not to stop the conversation, it's to slow before somebody kind of like shoots themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I'm always careful, and I try to make sure that I'm in a different space now, right? I'm used to having conversations with my people here, but without trying or not, like I'm in a different space. I'm in a global economy now, you know, and so I try to be very cognizant of that as I say things, and address my people, or things like that. Take certain things into effect, and even one thing interesting, over the last week, I believe last Sunday, Tim Cook released a video on GDPR, because Apple's just like, screw it, we're just going to start adopting it. Nobody got to tell us. We're just going to do it. And by nature, they already were Kappa, because they're in California. And it's weird because now now they tightened it up so much that Facebook and Apple are fighting, because Apple is
Yeah,
tightening down
but
for GDPR.
yeah, but in general, Apple's value to its, or at least my perceived to its value, is, some people, right, on the Google side and whatnot, do not like the closed ecosystem, but I was like, the whole reason Apple does that is their value is to protect you. And yes, it's a business, I'm not blind about that, in their system, by keeping you in that system. But if you notice, right, the FBI, in terms of disclosures and fighting with Apple of what they have to pry open, and hacking into phones so that they can get sensitive data and information, the US government has gone, I was like, and that's Apple's kind of standard for privacy, and kind of, and that's what some
Oh, they've
people
been
want
so
to.
mad. Apple won't tell them nothing, and they get so irritated. Like, it's kind of funny, but they get super irritated. I find it hilarious.
But whereas, when everything is free, going back to what we've already talked about, well, I was like, this company, whether it be Clubhouse or Google or what, I was like, they need to have some value exchange. And sometimes you are sharing your private information so that they can figure out how to monetize that. So, yeah, I was like, it will be very, to me, exciting times to see how, after COVID subsides, it's not like the privacy, because as I said, the California change in privacy, GDPR, they all came on the heels. That, if everybody remembers that time where everybody was inundated with emails from all your retailers of, we're changing our privacy policy, and everyone's like, oh, this just looks like spam. But those issues have not gone away. It's just everybody's focus has been on a bigger, I was like, yeah, we all need to get healthy and not get each other killed by spreading a disease. But to my thing is when things shift back and stuff like that, for a lot of these new companies born or outgrowth during the pandemic and a lot of social upheaval, they are going to have to grapple their growing business model against privacy data concern. And then
So you
for the,
think there'll be course correction, or there'll be like sort of readjustment of these policies?
I think a lot of, when more states and countries adopt, if they go the EU route or California's route, the writing will be on the wall for most tech companies that trade in content, shared social kind of spaces and stuff like that, is maybe the consumer has these privacy rights ensconced, and maybe the US at the federal level will take a look back again to see, is there almost like privacy bill of rights. I mean, that's what we did for HIPAA. Is that personal health information is protected, and it's something that patients can deal with their medical providers and stuff like that. And that was kind of, I mean, I think nowadays generation, I'm not that old, although people now I was like, I know I don't look it, but I was like, I do remember those conversations. But I think for the younger, the quote unquote the TikTok generation, and now the Clubhouse generation, they're probably not aware of it, and they're just used to kind of seamlessly going in and out of apps without it. Or back in
Oh,
the
even worse now. Now, because they grew up around the entire app economy, they don't even know to look. You know what I mean? And then so
yes,
there's people out here signing up for stuff that don't even know, and they find out later, like how deep these terms of policies are.
they don't like reading me and my fellow attorneys 30 pages of content. It's not interesting content. um the thing is yeah, I think there will be some type of course correction or thought when things kind of settle out. But right now that's not the order of the day. But because users can't fall on a consistent set of terms or protections when dealing with Clubhouse or their fellow users, again, I probably say is, watch what you say. I was like, you could be liable for it. Somebody could get angry about it. And if Clubhouse does lean into the community spirit and the community model, I definitely think it relies heavily on the moderators or the top people speaking or controlling the flow of the conversation to kind of coach and help people out. I do think that also in turn, though, yes, as an attorney analyzing liability and risk is that if you are looked at the leader and Clubhouse's terms and service and policies kind of tries to shift responsibility in terms of community moderators or things like that, I do wonder if you have a regulated industry like the selling of securities or financial investments and things like that, and people kind of tend to mouth off. Right. The SEC slapped Elon Musk because he would talk about what he wanted to do with Tesla over Twitter, and that's a violation of securities laws. It was like, I do worry for quote unquote people who present themselves as experts or use the platform for too much kind of advice. Is like, are you gonna get slapped?
Oh, I mean, they're already in trouble if you really think about it. If somebody wanted to, all right, you might not get very far, but you can make enough noise to make it a problem for somebody else. Um, there's lots of room about crypto, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even Elon came in there and told everybody that he came in the Clubhouse talking about he's fixing to buy a metric F ton of crypto. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden it went from 28,000 to 38,000 to
I was
44,000
about to
to
say
50. It's 55 today. So, as a person of wealth who can just literally go out and buy that finite number of coin, and he goes in and he buys in at 28, okay? And then he goes in the Clubhouse and has a 2-hour room talking about why they believe crypto is legit now and it's going to get solidified because of the upheaval going to world. And you're Elon Musk. Now you are a person of record. You're not me. You're not you. You're Elon freaking Musk. While you're having this conversation, one of your rockets is on his way, right? You go in and say, okay, I'm going to jump. I forgot what the number is, but I'm going to just spitball the number. I'm going to dump like 300 mil institutional cash in the Bitcoin. You move the needle, you dork. So for right now, he's safe. But when it hits 60 next week and then he pulls out, theoretically, he's in trouble, right or wrong.
For the thing is when it comes to crypto, it isn't regulated though. That's why I noticed with Elon, he likes Right. That
But
was his whole idea of
if somebody loses money because you are manipulating it, even though it's not regulated, aren't you still creating
so
a
right. I know where you're going,
because
and
of
that
who he is?
yeah,
Like if
yeah.
it was you and I, maybe
Wait,
no case. But because of who he is there a problem?
I think it's not necessarily who he is. I think it depends on, and this keeps going back to the theme that we're going, because it's an audio app. Watch what you say, and there are things. I think people forget there are oral contracts. Um, Contracts are not the written documents, but that's why I usually use the term written agreement. But a contract, as you've heard me say it, is it's this for that. It is an exchange of promises of this. I want that for this. I want that pen or pencil for $5. That's the contract, right? I want a cup of coffee for cup of coffee for $10, right? That's kind of where we and
We're heading fast.
yeah. So there's that, and what people don't understand at law, there is what we call quasi. There's this category of things that are called like quasi contracts, and there are situations a lot of times where it's not quite the legal elements of contract that exists, but there definitely seems to be some type of promise there, and what we call a foreseeable detrimental reliance on those words. Like, right, I am the smartest man in this room, and I know my money, and if you invest today or whatnot, or you plunk down $10 or $100 or $100,000 on this particular investment or these cryptocurrencies, like, and tomorrow you will get 100,000, you get 100% return, and the next day it completely crashes. I think they're going to have some words with you and to see if they have a viable claim, depending on what was said, what was done, and what was believed. And those are the kind of the factors we tend to look at. And so, yeah, I'm always all for different ways to reach out, as we've already talked at the beginning of content creation, reaching out, providing value. But for every piece of technology, app, or whatnot comes, there is just also, you're still dealing with fellow people, and some people do not have the best intent or interest. Or maybe it's not even something nefarious or ill gotten gains. It's just I interact differently with a piece of information than you do. And I don't know what your expectation is versus mine and yours. And so, if that is the order of the day, even with terms of service, guidelines, policies, you may find yourself or getting other people into trouble, right? So, I, I think really, really powerful people, but I think they get it. I think, well, not okay. Maybe Elon is a bad, because he got into a fight with that Thai coach diver. Then there was the Twitter thing, and I'm like, okay, some people who are really really powerful have enough money and enough attorneys to help them.
he's
But
he's on some he's on some like really weird plane right now though. I mean, from a guy who used to think, man, this guy is so genius or whatever, I think he's starting to become dangerous genius, and he might have a Howard Hughes moment sooner or later. There's going to be a break.
but to your point about that, yeah, I think definitely as the stakes go high, and that's just the name of the situation. Even without Clubhouses, people who are in the spotlight, people who are wealthy, people who are experts, they have their reputation online for something, or they have power and influence in some way. And sometimes you can't say whatever you want, and some of them understand that, and others, they're okay with it and they're going to chance them. Right? I think it just depends. But for our fellow Hawaii community people, I would just say, yeah, I think you brought up some excellent points from a social and cultural aspect, and I kind of wanted to impart kind of how I see things legally speaking. Of no, it's not to stop you from using the app, it's to say that
Be
you
aware.
be aware. Yeah. It's always been that, whether you're going to a new city, going into a is like, just be aware of your surroundings and circumstances.
It's funny because it's so easy nowadays. Again, we touched on it briefly. It's so easy nowadays to see this new shiny app and the opportunity, and then the word on the tweets is like, yo, there's deals to be had. There's people out here like doing big things, and I'm gonna miss out. And then so when you come to this idea that you're going to miss out and the FOMO is strong, then you just dive in. I remember when I was only getting like 2 invites every 2 weeks or something, yo, it was like crack. There's actually memes of Tyrone Biggums.
Mm.
Hey, yo, you got those Clubhouse invites.
Well, people were trying to sell them,
Yeah, right. And
and I
then
was
okay,
like,
so
so
I was
much for the
being I was
commercial
being
use thing.
holdy. I was being very holdy with my invites because there was the thing that they originally said that if you invite somebody and that somebody turns out to be a dweeb, you are going to get backlash. So I'm like, yo, I'm not inviting anybody because it could be normal and they just have a freak out moment, then I'm gonna get in trouble. So like I was like squeezy. So for the longest time, nobody even knew I was on. There was no Hawaii people. There was me, and I was enjoying it. And then my boy Philip Limone came in there, and I was like, hey Phil, like, okay, we're Team Hawaii, bro. Let's go in there and represent our island well. And then I just see it more and more and more and more and more. And then I saw the Hawaii Twitterverse pop in, and there I'm being invited to all these rooms. I'm like, nope, not going in there. I'm not going into any rooms where I see fellow Hawaii people. It's so weird, but it's just a thing. Um,
Right, right,
and so
right.
yeah, it just gotta, fam, you just gotta be cognizant. And even if it sounds too good, like you're hearing, like, what it was VCs were funding people's projects from pitch rooms. That happened like twice in how many months I've been there, but that got everybody running when the gate came open without reading anything. How deep is the pool? And then you dive in and you crack your ankle. You can't, the pool, the sign said no running and diving in the pool.
Right.
So if you didn't read that, that's on you, player. It is just
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
it
but
is.
some people like that will then tend to be. It's like, what can we do? Well, and then that's when I step in and say, this is not a Clubhouse conversation. That is a closed consultation meeting behind closed doors. There is some value to articulating things after an agreement is signed and talking behind closed doors, and that's all I'm going to say on that. I think at this time, I think we're at a good spot. Thank you for joining me. This
I just like
family
your
fun.
answer to that's all I'm going to say on that. That's funny.
I Hey, look, you know me. I've worked in business, politics, and as an attorney, and I am right now just listening a lot and kind of absorbing and understanding Clubhouse. Um, but I've always told people, yes, there is value in openness, transparency, and sharing. But there is also valueness in kind of being discreet, confidential, and kind of, to some extent, protecting things that you have created or worked on and value. You just need to have good business sense and acumen, but combined with a firm grasp of, to me, a firm grasp of the legal and community kind of fundamentals that, again, it goes back to the awareness thing.
Yes.
Do you have any parting words for me and anybody who may be viewing this?
I just say, if you're going to jump in, make sure you read the terms and conditions and, the privacy policy. And if you agree with it, Clubhouse can be beneficial, but like anything else, like there will be areas that you want to avoid. Um, and again, realize that you are not speaking into a vacuum,
Right,
and as long as you're aware of that, there's fantastic value to be had in what is going to be this new sort of quick open dialogus like type of app, because it won't just be Clubhouse. Trust me, there's three or
oh,
four brand new ones popping.
yeah, when
So
you have a
just
bunch of wealthy backers trying to build their
coming,
own, yeah.
right? So just pay attention to what's going on, and you know, take this as a lesson, not just for Clubhouse either, because right now, with everybody quote unquote stuck at home, all the other social apps that have been wanting to come out are coming out. And also, you just reminded me of something I didn't think of ever. I get emails from Instagram and TikTok and everybody else. Hey, we're updating terms of service. I'm like, yeah, I've been using it 15 years. Click. You might want to read them because they could have been like, hey, starting tomorrow, we're gonna sell all your stuff, and you went click, and you
Yeah.
don't even know.
Well, yes, as a business attorney, we sometimes realize that people are just kind of like, click, I want to get past this, and start using. And I'd be like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Anyway, on that note, I think we're going to circle back on some of these other great topics that we have either on your show or on
Yeah,
YouTube or
anytime.
whatnot. Yeah,
I
but
appreciate you, and can't wait to see each other in meet space again instead of just like talking
I
on the Zoom.
I look forward to being able to hang out for real. But if not, I now know to look out for you and not identify from Hawaii and just listen to your sweet voice on Clubhouse.
Well, you know what they say, I got a face for radio.
No, I would never say that. I would
You
never
know,
say that.
we're in close. You know, one of my favorite things about people never reading their agreements and stuff like that. You know, the average person, say, you know, back in the day, would be transferring, say, from one computer to the next. And you know, with Apple OS, it just comes with the machine. But with Windows, oftentimes you'd have to buy a copy of Windows. If you weren't going from, say, XP to the next highest thing,
Mhm.
you could take the one that came in your Dell and move it to your new computer. It's transferable. The other thing that most people don't know because they never read the paper, you know that little sticker that used to be on the side with the 16-digit code? If you read it was always came with a flat thing
Yeah,
with
yeah,
a
yeah.
hologram to let you know it was legit. It was about 8
Yes.
pages. But in the tiny writing on that little sticker, it says good for 2 computers.
Yeah.
So people would literally buy like 80 copies of Windows for 80 computers when you really only needed 40 copies of Windows for 80 computers because the license was good for 2 computers. And that's what happens when folks don't read. Companies make a mint. It's also why they made it 4-point text.
So, there are people, right? Tech marketing, because for packaging and branding, but also the tech for coding and program. And then there's the lawyer or lawyers, and they got to figure out how to package all this together and kind of like, well, will they notice that? Will that be contrary? Like, and it, it's the same thing we have here. Is like, okay, Clubhouse, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna sell? What are you gonna, and how are you gonna protect yourself? And for me, it's always fun because it's always interesting in terms of the ecosystem that comes up with all these apps and the kind of energy, and it's kind of always thrilling. So I look forward to it. I look forward
Yeah.
to
And I
how
definitely think that I need to have you come and have this conversation on my show because I'm mostly with creators who are just diving in, seeing Clubhouse as this fantastic way to grow and do whatever. And so, yeah, it'd be really cool to circle back soon. So I appreciate you for bringing me in. And then now I'm going to order CPK and send you the bill.
Okay, I'll see you later. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Ryan. Aloha.
Bye.